Ever since I was 9, the word guru stirred something within me. No matter in what context I heard the word, I paid attention to it. The gurus that I saw in television serials like Mahabharata and Ramayana influenced me a lot, and I grew up believing that gurus of such caliber don't exist in our generation. I would often go and sit alone on top of a rock behind Malaikovil temple in Trichy for up to 4 hours. Otherwise, I had been leading a normal life of an easygoing, rough, playful, and energetic teenager. After clearing the Marine Radio Officer's course, in the interim, I found a job in the rice mill as an accountant. I would often hear ka 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 sounds in the morning and wonder what kind of yoga that could be. One day, they asked me to join a small function at their house to welcome their guru who was coming to bless them. There were many who wanted him to bless their houses, but he agreed to come to our house, one of the sons added excitedly. That was the first time that I saw Sadhguru. Dressed in an Angavastram, I saw Sadhguru park his Tata Sierra car, which was loaded with suitcases. He seems like an ordinary man with a wife and daughter and drives a car. I had imagined a guru to be dressed in orange, ascetic and saint-like, so I stood there disinterested, away from the crowd that had gathered to receive his blessings. After a pad puja by the family, others took turns to bow down at Sadhguru's feet. Upon insistence from the family, I too went and bowed down to Sadhguru. Since I was the last to go, there was not much space around him, and I had no choice but to touch my forehead to his feet. When I got up, I felt my forehead smeared with the chandanam that was offered to his feet during the pad puja. Looking back, I felt that was Sadhguru's first prasadam for me, though this meeting seemed inconsequential at the time. Whenever I had time, I used to enjoy sliding down piles of dried paddy. One day, when I was joyfully sliding down, one of the sons came around and asked me if they could send me to the Isha Yoga class. "It will settle your restlessness," he said, since they took care of the class donation, paid for my time off, and lent me their motorbike to use during those 13 days. I happily agreed to sit for the class, and my life changed forever. As the class went on, I felt more and more exuberant, and to express my utter joyfulness and energetic state every day, I went to the microphone and shared my experience enthusiastically. On the last day, something phenomenal happened. After the Guru Puja, uncontrollable tears were just rolling down my cheeks. Our teacher, who was also Brahmachari, gave us each a flower before concluding the class. When I went to receive the flower, I did full Shashtanga Namaskaram to him, and he lifted me up and embraced me. My tears overflowed and soaked his white kurta. The participants, who had regarded me as a spirited and vivacious youth so far, were surprised to see me in that state. The Brahmachari's energy, his way of being, had made a deep impression on me, and I asked the co-teacher, "What qualifications do I need to be like him?" "You mean Brahmacharya?" the co-teacher asked. "Yes," I said, without knowing what he meant by Brahmacharya. "Willingness," he said smilingly. "That's all." Since then, the purpose of my life was to take up Brahmacharya. I gave myself totally to the practices. The Kriya used to take me 1.25 hours. But I became even more efficient at my work than before, and therefore had even more time to slide down the paddy, to the disappointment of my owner. Though the simple playfulness didn't subside, nobody could miss the profound change in me after the class. Within a month, I came to the ashram for Vijima's Aradhana Satsang that happened 11 days after her Mahasamadhi. I had only seen her twice in my life, once in the rice mill owner's house, and another time on the Isha Yoga initiation day. Many people got up to share about Vijima, and before the satsang concluded, Sadhguru said, "We may not be related by blood, but there is another kind of bond between us. Please eat before you go." Those words penetrated me so deeply, and it strengthened my determination to walk the path even more. In March, I did the Bhavaspandana program with Sadhguru. As soon as any process started, I would burst into dancing or crying. The first day, the volunteers tried to make me sit in my place, but after that, they left me alone. I heard later that Sadhguru had told them to leave me alone to dance or to do whatever I wished to. After the BSP, I took an appointment with Sadhguru and asked him if I could come for the teacher's training. "You leave teacher's training, I have some other work for you," he said. Till now, I am wondering what that work is. Anyway, in that meeting, I also asked him for brahmacharya. Initially, he tried to discourage me but finally nodded yes to my joy. Within a month, I moved to the ashram and was initiated into brahmacharya the next year, in 1998. Within a few months of moving into the ashram, I was given the responsibility of purchasing items for Dhyanalinga construction and other ashram materials. I was given the Tata Mobile Jeep to drive, and there were times when I drove up and down to Coimbatore 4 times in a day. To save money, we would load and unload the truck full of heavy items ourselves. None of us among us can forget the intensity and struggle with which the Dhyanalinga dome was built. Once, I remember when the construction of the Dhyanalinga entrance vault was almost completed, we realized that the last stone that joined the 2 arms of the vault arc needed to be of a different shape and size than the rest of the stones used in the arc, and we didn't have it. We called the quarry manager immediately to start cutting the stone, and Swami Devasatwar and I decided to go to the quarry personally to ensure it happened in time. We left at 10 pm to Kunnathur near Gobichettivalayam and stayed there until we brought the stone back at 4 am. Dhyanalinga consecration is one event that is so vivid in my mind, it's as if it happened yesterday. Before the final part of the consecration could be completed for some 15 days, we were in a state of limbo. Each day, Sadhguru was looking at whether the situation was suitable. Since we were not sure when it would happen, we continued with our usual activities. On June 24, 1999, I was out in Coimbatore to pick up the purchase items. As I usually did, at around 5:15 pm, I called the ashram to ask if anything was needed. Ma Gambhiri picked up the phone and said, "It is very likely that the consecration is going to happen tonight, and Sadhguru is meeting the brahmacharis at 6 pm. Come if you can." I was at DB Road, RS Puram at the time. Since I could not miss attending this meeting, I drove really fast, and within 35 minutes, I was back in the ashram. I parked the vehicle near Kavalya Kutir and rushed to join the other brahmacharis under the Shivalya tree. After a few minutes, Sadhguru walked in casually, wearing his white kurta and jeans. "Today seems to be a conducive day for the consecration," he said. He then gave some instructions on how we needed to be inside the dome and gave us each a jasmine flower. After about 30 minutes, Sadhguru got up from the Shivalya stone and walked away very slowly to Shunya cottage. We all stood there watching him disappear behind the leaning tree garden. It looked as if he had merged into the twilight. Sadhguru had said he might have to merge himself into the linga as a last resort to complete the consecration. Thinking about that possibility, some of us were finding it hard to control our emotions. But there was work to do, so we all dispersed to assume the responsibilities that were assigned to us for the consecration process. A few of us knew that Sadhguru could collapse during the process and would need to be carried to his house. I was assigned this responsibility. So I was to keep my vehicle ready outside the dome and sit near Bharati Akka to keep a close watch on Sadhguru. Around 6 pm, I saw Sadhguru coming out of Shunya cottage in his langot and a white shawl. Sadhguru first went to Bijima's Samadhi stone and did some process. As soon as I saw him coming towards the dome, I went in to be seated. Sadhguru entered and jumped onto the Abudayar without any support. He then asked for water. Sadhguru applied the water on his chakras and started the process. He started from the top chakra, and after locking each chakra, he pronounced the name audibly. He almost toppled over when he said Anahata, but he got back to his feet quickly. There he was, lying on the Abudayar with eyes closed, and I was simply staring at him for a few moments. Bharati Akka understood and indicated for me to carry him back home. That's when I got jolted back to my senses and rushed to lift him. While we were carrying him, his eyes remained closed and he was making some sounds. It felt like he was in tremendous pain. He rested his head on my shoulder as I drove him to the Shunya cottage. When we were inside, we headed towards his room, but Sadhguru indicated for us to take him to the shrine, and there we put him on the floor. As soon as we left him, he started to roll around in pain. I just couldn't bear to see him in that state, and with tears in my eyes, I left. On the third day, after the consecration, I was asked to bring Sadhguru to the Shivalya stone. When I entered his room, I was just so relieved to see him sitting in his chair. There was no one else in the room. When I went near him, he lifted his hand and put it on my shoulder. His touch felt stronger than an electric current, and I started to shake violently. He understood and lowered his hand. After that, I went into silence. I saw him again only after 7 days, as he was leaving for a meeting in Salem. He was walking slowly, looking tired and unbelievably older. His beard had turned almost grey in just 10 days. But he was alive.